Once heralded as one of football's greatest wonderkids, James Rodriguez's career has been a journey of highs and lows, a true maverick who's seemingly been confined by the constraints of modern football. But what happens if you simulate that career over again on FM 2010? Let's find out. Before we travel back to 2009 and restart our man's career, let's just briefly look at what he's achieved over the last 2 decades. He'd make his professional debut aged just 14 for Envigado, before eventually moving to Europe. It was with giants Real Madrid and Bayern Munich where he'd enjoy his most successful period, winning 12 out of his total 25 trophies in a 5-year spell. But all of that is now a distant memory. We join James, aged 17, with Banfield in the Argentine Premier League. Already his attributes are showing some tremendous promise as he looks to establish himself a first-team regular at his new club. For the season ahead, the Colombian will be deployed in a central midfield role in a 4-4-2 formation. And it wouldn't take long for him to make an impact. 50 minutes into the new campaign, he hammers the ball past the keeper. 2 further goals by Sebastian Fernandez would ensure all 3 points in his first Argentine Premier League game of the season. His form in the opening stage of the domestic league was truly impressive, registering 7 goals and assists in his first 17 matches. Banfield would finish just 2 points off the top of the table. And this form wasn't going unnoticed. Greece in his final appearance with Banfield ensured he went out in style. Just like in reality, a transfer would materialise, but not yet to Europe. Brazilian giant Santos would sign the midfielder on an initial loan, but with an option to buy. Without a doubt, joining this squad is a major step up for his development. At the top of the field, he'll be looking to unlock defences for Neymar and Robinho. Santos now arguably have 2 of the best young footballers in the world in their ranks. If they can get them both performing well, there's a lot of potential to succeed here. But that wasn't to be the case. Over the following year, the Colombian would register 6 goals and assists from his deeper midfield role. Form of Neymar was a lot more spectacular, registering 20 goals and assists in the Brazilian league before his season was cut short by injury. On a team level, Santos were probably happy to finish a respectable 5th place in the standings, but at the end of the campaign, they would lose both of their superstars. For $8.5 million, Rodriguez has a new home in Rio de Janeiro. Once again, though, from a statistical standpoint, he was struggling in his new surroundings. With just 1 goal contribution in his first 10 games, a huge Rio derby would be next. In the lineup for Flamengo, Adriano. Finally, he would announce himself to his new supporters. Receiving the ball far from goal, he hits an absolute thunderbolt to put Fluminense ahead. With just seconds remaining in regular time, his goal looked to be the winner. This was at least until Adriano gets in behind and ensures the points are shared. That would prove to be his solitary goal in the colours of Fluminense. 18 months after joining, the big money signing would depart the club on a long-term loan to River Plate. And finally, this would see his career truly ignite. 29 goals and assists on his return to Argentina established him amongst the league's best. An undefeated second half of the season would lead to a league title, comfortably beating their rivals Boca by 7 points. A year later, though, and the roles would be reversed. Despite another exceptional effort by the Colombian, contributing 30 goals and assists, they'd narrowly miss out on defending their crown. And those efforts hadn't gone unnoticed. For a bargain fee of just $15 million, James has moved to Catalonia. He joins a world-class squad featuring the likes of Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, and Gerard Piqué. They have also just signed his compatriot Falcao. In real life, those two combined well at Porto and Monaco. Can they replicate that connection too in Barcelona? He would fit seamlessly into his new side's short passing style. getting on the score sheet in no time in a convincing 4-1 victory against Sociedad. In reality, during his first season in European football with Porto, our man would win a historic league and cup treble. That success wouldn't be replicated this time around. A runner-up finish in La Liga was accompanied by a disappointing campaign in both the Copa del Rey and Champions League. Solid performances with his new side would ensure his national team selection for the Copa America 2015. This is a squad with no shortage of talent. In 2016, they actually finished third in the Copa America, narrowly missing out on a final. As mentioned earlier, his compatriot Falcao has joined him at Barcelona. Age 29, he's literally in his prime and will be looking to get his hands on that trophy. With 6 points accumulated out of a possible 9, Colombia would move on to the knockout stages. Next up in their path, a prime Uruguay. James would have a game to remember as they overcame their rivals 3-0. His second assist coming from the corner. With a place in the final up for grabs, it would be Mexico who'd stand in their way. In their ranks, probably the player of the tournament so far, Carlos Vela. In 4 games, he's already contributed 6 goals and assists. With 32 minutes played, it would be the superstar who opened the scoring, finding space between the 2 defenders before converting. It was a tightly fought match, and as time was about to expire with a penalty shootout looming, Colombia lost focus and were eliminated. There would be further disappointment during the 2016 season, with Barca failing to add any more silverware to their cabinet. A year later, though, and they would regain that title. Not just that, a long run in the Spanish Cup set up a tantalizing Clásico final. Against his former teammate Neymar, it would be Madrid who'd take the day, beating their fierce rivals 2-0. Domestically, the 2018 season would be Barcelona's worst in nearly 2 decades, finishing 4th in the La Liga table. With all their eggs in the Champions League basket, they overcame Porto to reach the semis. Needing to overcome a first leg deficit, unsurprisingly Messi would step up. A hat-trick ensured a 4-3 aggregate victory and a place in the final. On club football's biggest stage, it would be a future Barcelona man, Miralem Pjanic, who opened the scoring, firing past the keeper from range. Barcelona wouldn't get out of first gear and were convincingly beaten 3-0. James would need to forget about that disappointment quickly. Over the previous 2 years, he's been an integral part of his national team's efforts to qualify for a World Cup. Placing joint top of the South American qualifying table, they enter this tournament as a potential contender. In the 2014 World Cup, Rodriguez would leave the tournament with 6 goals and assists, and the recipient of the tournament's Golden Boot. He looked to be replicating that form here in 2018. In the second group game against Costa Rica, he'd hit a brace. He repeated that feat in the next game against China, as he ensured his side picked up another 3 points. With 3 wins out of 3, they moved into the knockout stages of the tournament. In reality, in 2018, they would lose out in this stage in a penalty shootout against England. They'll be hoping for a different fate today. One interesting thing I did notice in this alternate universe was Sergio Romero playing for Holland. In 2014, he started the World Cup final for Argentina, but was clearly overlooked by them this time around. Rodriguez would be involved in the game's only goal. Dropping deep into the midfield, he finds himself with time and space. A perfect pass sets Zuniga away. Now at the business end of the tournament, Colombia would face a quarter-final against real-life winners France. The South Americans have never advanced further than this stage in their history. With an hour played, France's quality was obvious. Benzema would score the first of 2 goals as his side pressed home their early domination. But Colombia wouldn't be sent home without a fight. Rodriguez is involved in the build-up as the ball makes its way to the forward, who converts. But that would prove to be the end of their journey. Narrowly, they're sent out of the tournament by eventual winners, France, who'd replicate their success. A year later, and coming off the back of another league title with Barcelona, James would try again to secure Colombia's first Copa America title since 2001. They finished top of their group before the knockouts began. Quarter-final victory against Chile, set up a semi-final with Peru. Falcao would be the hero, scoring a brace, as Colombia ensured they'd be playing for the gold medal in the final. But with 14 minutes played, Argentina find the back of the net. For the fifth time already in his career, Rodriguez would lose a major final. Whilst there definitely were some disappointments in his career thus far, there's also been many reasons to celebrate. In 2020, he'd secure his third La Liga title since moving to Europe. In 2021, a new medal would be added to his trophy cabinet. Bojan's only goal in the Spanish Cup final set the Catalans on their way. But there was still one major trophy which eluded our man, the Champions League. Since losing to Lyon in the final, Barca haven't returned. This time around, if they can beat AC, they'll be playing for club football's biggest prize. And they proved to be a cut above their opponents. Within 2 minutes, Messi would open the scoring as they secured a 5-2 aggregate win. And who would they face in the final but AC's eternal rivals Inter? James would open the scoring from the spot. After that early high, the next 80 minutes would be nothing but sobering. 4 unanswered goals meant that for a second time, our man would miss out in a UCL final. With the Colombian entering the twilight of his career, he was still contesting some of the biggest prizes in the sport. A league win would be followed up by another Spanish Cup triumph, as the midfielder scored 2 goals in the final against Atletico. After failing to qualify for the 2022 World Cup and a very disappointing early elimination in the Copa America 2023, losing out in a group of death would see James officially retire from international duty. 1 year after that, he'd secure his final domestic medal, yet another La Liga title. Aged 35 and having enjoyed a truly impressive career in South America, Barcelona, and his national team, he's decided to retire from professional football. In all, he'd played 781 matches during the entirety of his career, scoring 156 goals and adding 125 assists. He'd win 16 medals, including 3 La Liga titles and 3 Spanish Cups. He would narrowly end up missing out on victory in 2 Champions League finals and a Copa America final too. James Rodriguez is seemingly a player who struggled with the evolution of modern football, a maverick whose talent shouldn't be oppressed by a rigorous tactical system. With his playing days behind him, in this simulation it looks like he'll be taking up his next role in the managerial dugout. If he can teach the next generation anything from his career, they could be in line for a lot of success too.